I'd like to introduce Feroze Dada today, who is the author of your new book called A Disciple, Path to Infinite Happiness, which is published by Mensch Publishing and Bloomsbury India, and coming out in February, on February the 17th. You're also a meditation teacher at London's Sylvan Healing Sanctuary, among your many other roles in life as dad and husband and friend. I'd like today to talk about your new book, which really looking forward to its launch. Feroze, but first, going back to you, when you started out on your spiritual journey, tell me, you were a successful entrepreneur running a very successful tax practice in Mayfair in London. Your life today is far removed from the life you had. Tell me, what precipitated this change?
Thank you, Kate, for having me in your interview. Some 15 years ago, maybe longer, 17 years ago, when I was sitting in my tax practice office in Mayfair, a new client walks into the office. And there's something about this person which is unique. Every time I met him, he seemed to generate a lot of energy, allowed me to focus, made me feel alive, like I've never felt before. And so one day I asked him, what do you do besides being a successful businessman? And he said, you know, Feroze, I'm a spiritual teacher. I trained in the Sufi tradition, but my teachings are now open to everybody. They're non-religious. So I asked him, I said, let's call him Ustad, because that's how I refer to him in the book. I asked him, Ustad, will you take me on as a student? And he said, you're not ready yet, Feroze. So that's the beginning of my journey, I would say.
So how did you eventually come to being in a position where Ustad accepted you as to be your mentor?
Well, actually, it was almost 5 years. I was persistent. The good thing he said to me is that you're not ready yet, which meant there was some hope, Kate. And
yeah.
And then one day, I think it was December 2010, when he called me up and he said, Feroze, let's meet for dinner. And I remember so clearly, he looked at me and said, Feroze, you're ready now. I'm happy to take you on. But then he said a few things which are profound. I didn't understand them at that time. I do a little bit better now. So he said, first thing he said to me, Feroze, this is a path of roses, but roses have thorns.
Oh.
This is a path of roses, but roses have thorns. Profound, I thought, but didn't know quite what it meant. And then he showed me a quick meditation mantra, a Zika Sufi meditation mantra. And he said, Feroze, practice this as you go along. And as I was leaving, he said, and I accepted, of course, with great happiness to be his student. He said, once you're on this path, you will never want to turn back again. And that is true.
And not necessarily an easy path with the analogy of the thorns. It was something that you needed courage to do.
Well, yes, Kate, but in a sense, of course, I didn't know what this path was. But if I look back now, I can explain what that meant. It meant simply this, that if you want to smell the fragrance of the rose, which is the beauty and enjoyment and love for this life, then you must be prepared to feel the prick of the thorn, which means you must be prepared to feel the pains that also come with it. But the key to this, of course, is not the love, the pleasure, and the pain. It is the acceptance of everything that happens to you in your life. That is the path of roses, and roses have thorns. You can't change what is around you. You can't change it. You can change yourself. And that's what really it's about. Changing yourself from the inside out rather than outside in.
So you, soon after your meeting then, when you accepted, you went to Burma, and this seemed to have been the sort of start of your of you changing yourself from the inside out. Tell me what happened on that trip.
Yeah. Well, the Sufi tradition of initiation with the teacher and master, again, in retrospect, I can say, it's like all the lights have been turned out inside you. You know, you're in sort of twilight zone before that, and suddenly something happens to turn those lights in you. And by that, I mean that you begin to see the world in a different light. You look at the world and do what is needed rather than what you want from it. Right. And so when I went to Burma, which was the next morning, in fact, the flight, and that is actually, the full story is in the book Children of the Revolution, which is kindly, yes, which is kindly endorsed by His Holiness the Dalai Lama because of the project that happened in Burma. So anyway, we were on a lake, the Inle Lake in Burma, which is a beautiful place, in the most remote part of Burma. And there in a storm, we took refuge in a monastery. And in the monastery was a monk who was looking after 300 or 400 orphaned and abandoned children. And we were so impressed by how happy they were and how beautiful they were that we made a commitment, my wife and I, to help these children and to make the monastery self-sustaining. Of course, in life, you do get your rewards by virtue of karma anyway. And I realized that as we continue to help the children, and we do so up to this date, there is also a great deal of happiness that comes from doing it, but also that the monk there taught me meditation and actually put me on the path of meditation, which is the greatest gift he could give me.
You practice that every day, is that right?
Oh, yes. I think not just every day, in the morning and at night. I also take the opportunity in the daytime, if there's a bit of tension or difficulty, just to take a few minutes out and do the breathing exercise we did earlier. Just a quick breath to center you and allow that period of tension to pass. So it's a very good pragmatic and practical tool, you know, for people at work or for people in sport. Great sportsmen also practice meditation because they need to be calm and focused. And meditation gives you all that beauty and that ability to stay calm and peaceful in this turbulent time.
Great tips for, especially for now, as you say. So you also accompanied Usted on several pilgrimages all around the world, great sacred sites. You must have had some amazingly different experiences to your life in Mayfair, as you know, father of two. Tell me, what were some of those pilgrimages, and what did you learn from those experiences?
Each pilgrimage was different. It had a different central topic to it. But each one was made up of time for meditation, time for reflection, time for spiritual learning. So, for example, in Jerusalem, where we went to the site of Rabia al-Basri, who is the first female Sufi saint, we learned about unconditional love and the Sufi concept of unconditional love. Not only does Ustad teach by words, but he teaches by practice. For example, when we went to Mother Mary's house in Turkey, in the Bulbul Mountains, there he taught us about humility, about silence and humility. And there's a beautiful story in the book about how he taught me humility by experience rather than words. We went to Egypt. We meditated in the depths of the Giza pyramid, the Great Pyramid. And there we learned and experienced spiritual energy. So yes, each one of those trips took me at a higher and higher level of learning and knowledge and meditation.
Can you tell me more about Mother Mary for people who might not know about Mother Mary?
Assuming she seemed to have a connection with humanity. And if you can find that connection, then you will benefit from it. And that was my gift, if you like, that I received on my pilgrimage to Ephesus.
So it sounds like she's very important and a presence in the world through meditation. And
I think that you can ask your spirit guides, whoever they might be, and each individual, each human being have their guides. If you can connect sincerely and ask for help, ask for guidance, it's open to all. The universal energy is open to all of us. It's not a mystery. It's just a secret, but it's an open secret.
One that we all have access to with sort of work, as you say, or spiritual meditation. But also you have a very deep and meaningful connection to St. Francis of Assisi. Can you elaborate on that too for me?
Oh, it's a wonderful, wonderful validation of spirituality and spiritual presence, and more details in the book, of course. But I was guided. In short, I was guided from the Sylvan Healing Sanctuary by a spirit guide to go to Assisi, and it really happened when the probabilities of such a thing happening were minimum or non-existent. And before I knew it, I was in the Archbishop's house, residence in Assisi, and that happened to be the house of renunciation, where St. Francis renounced all his worldly goods and connections for Jesus. And that particular experience validated my love for St. Francis and his teachings as a great monk. So yes, I was guided there by spirit.
Amazing. So much synchronicity as well in your life, that somebody you'd connected to, maybe through meditation, that you then were in the very place where he lived and worked. Amazing. So what did you discover? You express your love for the teachings of St. Francis of Assisi. What did you discover about his teachings on your spiritual journey?
I think in a way, his teachings, his experience was so profound that most people would not be able to follow it or practice it, because he gave up everything for his love for Jesus. Now, I'm not saying or able to do any such thing, but even if we can bring some sense of harmony between our inner life and our outer life, or if you may call it in St. Francis's language, a higher self and lower self, and bring some harmony into our lives between our world inside and our world outside, then that will give you a great deal of satisfaction, a great deal of happiness and peace. St. Francis gave up everything, but that's just a great example of an extraordinary human being, if you want to call him a human being. But even if you can learn something from his love, his unconditional love for Jesus, which is really what it is about. Having unconditional love does mean you leave aside everything else. You leave your ego, You leave your worldly possessions, your connections with the world. And in Islamic language, it is to die before you die. Now, that's not easy, but even if we can get a grain of what St. Francis practiced, then I think we'll be enriched by it.
Amazing. You at this time in your life, you then had this very random experience where you suddenly started interviewing spiritual, inspirational people. How did that come about? And also, can you tell me about some of the people that inspired you when you did those programs?
Yes, this is again, it's again, I think one of those things that seem to flow with the new life that I seem to be traveling on. And one of the online television companies contacted me after having read Children of the Revolution and said, would I like to make some programs interviewing humanitarian people and finding out why they helped humanity and what we can learn from their stories. I mean, I was so fortunate to travel all over the world, from Burma to Pakistan to Malta, Italy, and Denmark. But probably my most fascinating program, for me anyway, was Andrea Bocelli, the great opera singer, and how much of his life he's dedicating to helping children, helping the blind. Joseph Calleja, great opera singer, amazing man, how much he puts in to help other people. And he did an amazing concert for my charity as well. So this is not just taking their gifts to have of singing, of a great voice, but putting it to very good use, being aware of their gift and sharing it to help humanity.
A sort of unconditional love, I suppose, demonstration of that. You mentioned your charity, Feroze. Can you just tell me a little bit more about that? You did touch on the children in the orphanage in Myanmar.
Yes. So we saw the children at the monastery in Burma, and what we noticed and discovered is that in spite of having nothing, and literally really the minimum of food and not even clean water, they were so happy. Now, here was the paradox. We seem to relate happiness with having possessions, going on great holidays, this, that, and the other. And here are people who just had nothing but had everything. And so that was the pull to find out why this is happening. And we set up the charity so that we could give them clean drinking water, expand the work of the charity to give them education, to give them health facilities. And this has continued to this day. And in this difficult time in Burma, all this work has come to very, very good use indeed. The monastery is self-sustaining. It has now 1,200 children.
Amazing.
So and of course we continue to benefit from our time there, spent with meditation and the love of the children. So it's been beautiful.
Amazing achievement. That obviously came from your heart, meeting the monk in Burma.
I think the important thing to say, Kate, is that that we are the beneficiaries of this. I am the beneficiary of having had the opportunity to. I have gained from it more than I could ever say. So to say that I did anything would be wrong. I just got everything, if you see what I mean.
You demonstration of humility there, Feroze. We should mention actually your first book, because that is Children of the Revolution by Filament Publishing, and that goes into more detail about your journey and the children at the orphanage. And of course, Myanmar is going through the same uprisings. Well, it's all kicked off again there now again, and obviously still in need of great help, and for us to be aware of what's going on and to find ways to help. I'm just going to go back a little bit more now. With you've mentioned your interviewees, some of your interviewees that inspired you, but also in those programs you did something on this amazing community I'd never heard of before until I read your book, which is about the spiritual community of Damanhur. Which tell me about that place and the magic that you found there.
Again, through this on this journey, you might call it a coincidence, but I don't. I think these things we're guided towards, and I was guided to go to Damanhur, which is a community of 600 spiritual people who live in the foothills of the Alpine Mountains near Turin in Italy. And their world exists with beauty of temples, of practicing meditation, living a life in respect with nature. It's an eco-village, so they're well ahead of the time. They care for each other, they live with each other in harmony. And I see something like this being a blueprint for future humanity. It's not about just having possessions. It's about leading a balanced life in tune with nature, in tune with our inner selves, tune with other human beings, and expressing them in beautiful works of art, in beauty. And above all, never forgetting that this life is about not just learning, but also enjoying. This life is made as imperfection. It's just that we need to understand that perfection. That doesn't mean you don't have ups and downs. Of course you have ups and downs. That's part of the magic of the rose, the fragrance of the rose and the prick of thorn. Just need to accept these things as you go along.
Rose, on your journey, you also were introduced to London's Sylvan Healing Sanctuary, and you met a founder called the late Joan Fountain. Sadly, she died last year, but you formed an amazing friendship with her. Can you tell me about what you learned from this amazing woman?
Yes, this is wonderful. Recent time, really, last 3-4 years, that I was taken to the Sylvan Healing Sanctuary, introduced to me by a friend of mine, and there they opened the doors for me and showed me the world of spirits, how to connect with spirits, how to connect with our spirit guides, how to follow that path, the spirit path of connection. And I had some lovely experiences there. One of them, of course, was to be guided to their founder, 97-year-old lady called Joan Fountain.
Yeah.
And she's been an amazing teacher. In a way, she opened my mind, my eyes to the beauty of the spiritual path, to the journey of the soul in particular, and the journey of the soul, not just for its place on the physical life, this earth, but also gave me insight into how we pass over to the other side, and what it is like in the world after we pass. And so these are great insights, and I miss her very much. She's been a beautiful friend for these years. I've gained so much and learned so much from her.
Oh. We can read obviously more about those experiences, about passing over, and in your book, and she also had messages for humanity during the pandemic. Can you tell us?
Yes, indeed. In many ways, she predicted, if that's the right word, or foresaw that humanity would go through a difficult time. That was in my meeting with her in September 2019, well before there was any sense of this pandemic happening. But she did give so much hope, in the sense that although there would be difficulties and suffering for humanity, there was a need for change, a need for us to change the way we live, a need for us to change and respect the planet, to respect each other, to respect our inner life more than just being captivated by the world of form. So she left some beautiful gifts.
Yes.
Not just related in the book, but there are several YouTube programs that I've made, which people can watch and benefit from.
Should we ask Feroze about how your book can benefit readers, your experiences can benefit readers, and obviously what you've learned in these times of this global pandemic, and how you've made sense of the world today, and to give hope to people going forward.
Each individual has to follow their own path. I can't show them their path. They have to seek their own path. And if this book and its teachings are a guide for them, so that they get interested in seeking, then I think the purpose of this book has been achieved. It's just to be curious and think of something which is beyond our normal way of thinking, and see if they can find their path and follow it, because I think that they would gain from it. They would feel something special and elevate themselves.
Well, thank you. Thank you very much. You've certainly made me feel more connected. But when you meditate, Feroze, is that when you're stilling your mind to connect to this universal energy? Is that when you're listening to your nudges?
Again, with meditation, and it's all in the book, which would be really helpful, the detailed meditation exercises that I think you may be referring to. But there's something in there for everyone. I would say everyone. For somebody who simply wants to be calm, then we have Anapana Meditation, which is simply the breath meditation to just calm you down, to center you and bring you down to earth, if you like, right? Then you have Vipassana meditation, which is a full body meditation, which gives you insight, teaches you mindfulness to be able to focus and perform. Again, a practical tool as well as a spiritual tool. And then we have the very powerful Zika meditation, which is Sufi mystics practiced to connect really with the inner self. And I think in many ways, you can use the step-by-step approach, which I used, to just progress like any other technique. As you master one, you move to the other. And if you're interested, if you're happy with what you're doing, carry on. That works for you.
Yeah. Is the Zika the one that's fast through the nose?
The Zika meditation, in a sense, is a Sufi way of a human being reminding themselves about the beauty of their soul. You see, the soul, I mean, this is really now a top question you're asking, Kate, because this is a question that leads to infinite happiness. This is why it's called infinite happiness.
Yes, we're not quite there yet, are we?
But we are now, I'm afraid.
We are now. Earlier, yeah.
See, there's a great Sufi saint called Sadi, and he explained it in this way. He said, every soul is created for a certain purpose, and the light of that purpose has been kindled in that soul, right? What this simply means is that our infinite soul, our divine soul, is on earth for a physical journey of experience and learning. But we forget the beauty of our soul because we're distracted by the attractions of the world of form. And this Zika breath meditation is a way to connect to the soul. And each human being has to make their own journey of connection, finding out the truth of their existence, the reason and purpose of their soul journey on earth. And when we begin to make that connection, and Zika meditation allows us to breathe into the heart where our divine soul resides. And peace comes, peace, infinite happiness comes when the body and soul are in harmony with each other.
That's
Thank you,
beautiful.
Kate.
That's beautiful. Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Kate. Kate, take a deep breath. Relax your face, the back of your neck, your chest, your hands, your torso, your legs, your feet. Allow yourself to sink into the ground. Feel the awareness of your body. Move the focus of your breath to the tip of your nostrils. Be aware of the sensations of your breath coming in, going out. Remember that the breath is the secret of life. Breathe in, breathe out gently. If any thoughts arise in your mind, allow them to drift away like the clouds in the sky. Don't engage with those thoughts. Let them go, pass, like the clouds in the sky. Bring your awareness back to the breath, breathing in and breathing out. This is life. You're breathing in life. Make your way back to the room, Kate.
Thank you for that meditation. It was lovely. I felt your hands on my head.
Thank you very much, Kate.